Charlotte, as the cinematographer on Fences, I guess the first and most obvious question has to be, how do you take something that is based on a play and make it theatrical? Excuse me, cinematic.
Um, that is a good question, and I think it's a question that was kind of it was around, but it was a question that we never actually treated that specifically. What exactly is it that we're gonna make do so it becomes cinematic and for the screen? I think everybody was aware of it, but somehow that was enough. I think for Denzel, it was the way he spoke about it to us and to me was that, there's nothing to escape. It's not like we have to run away and do something completely different. The screenplay that was also, it was also written by August Wilson, was, it introduced a few more scenes, and we now go into the house and we go to the street and we go a couple of places in the city. But other than that, it was pretty close to what the stage play was. So it wasn't like, what are we going to do to make it cinematic? It was more, let's stay true to what now the screenplay is, which was more cinematic in the way it was written. And Denzel was saying, well, we got the luxury now to do close-ups and see what the person who's not facing the audience anymore, the person has turned away, what is he or she thinking? We can be alone with the character in the kitchen here. So just those things that was already in the script was, the first part of making it, for the screen. But it was very much about staying true to the screenplay and not constantly thinking about, oh, we must do more, we must entertain with the cinematic tools to make sure that people see it. It was exactly not that. It was, well, even though we can do all this, we will still stay right here and do what we must do for the screenplay.
Right. Well, the focus really is on the actors in this film, and their extraordinary performances, including by Denzel and Viola Davis and Stephen Henderson, Joe Bonadeppo, Michael T. Williamson, just to name a few, Russell Hornsby. So talk about, obviously you're working with close-ups, you're working with 2 shots, 3 shots, photographing the performances to best convey them, if that makes any sense.
Say again, sorry?
Photographing the performances to best convey them, to best bring them across on screen.
Yeah, I mean, that was key, and both Fences on stage and Fences on the screen, it is a character-led piece, and performances are driving the story. We didn't want the camera work or any other tools to drive the story. Everything needed to support the characters, even in moments where there were a silent moment or there was a pause. It was just about photographing that pause now, So, the simplicity and somehow the truthfulness, I don't want to call it like a documentary feel or documentary look or anything like that, but we were looking for the real, the reality of it. And Denzel was saying to us, yes, I want it to be truthful. I want it to be a real world. But we want to be cinematic. We want to light it and to treat it as cinema, but we don't have to show off. We don't have to, it mustn't become like, look what we can do, look how much we're doing to make it something else in theater. That was never like the case. And any camera movement, any anything we do with production value or a production designer, everything was not to prove or to make it more of a cinematic piece. It was just to stay true to the screenplay.
I guess you could call it beauty through simplicity in a way, right?
I'd say so, yeah.
Well, there you go. So also, you have an obligation to recreate the period, not just you, but obviously the production designer and the costume designer are all working together to best convey Pittsburgh in the 1950s. So how did that affect your work?
Well, the location was already, when I came on board, David Grutman and Denzel had already chosen the location up the Hill District, and that kind of set the tone. That set everything that they were looking for. So from that, our job was to setting the scene and just getting the bits of Pittsburgh that was wanted to make it a period piece, like the smoke towers and whatever we had that could tell the time period. Also, the film opens what they were saying that we're calling Wiley Avenue. So they recreated what inspired by Wiley Avenue. The hill, and you get the cobblestone and all these things. So it's, even though it was minimalistic and it was like a few sets that we could go out, I feel that the movie is certainly set in Pittsburgh 1950s or 57. There's enough there to justify the period, and I think production designer David Grutman did really well in the few scenes that we had. He just gave it all to set the tone.
Mm-hmm. Now, working with Denzel, he's both the director and the lead actor of this. So give us some insight into how you help him pull that hat trick off, because he can't be behind the camera at all times watching how the scene plays out as it's shooting, because he's in a lot of the scenes. So take us through the process of how you're able to achieve that, and what the collaboration between the two of you was like.
Sure. I mean, obviously we had many and long conversations in prep. I think for Denzel, the way he prepped me and the way he directed me already, in prep, was to talk about the story, to talk about what each scene was, and, the journey of it and the emotional journey in that particular moment. And, constantly feeding me and everybody the vibes, the emotions, the journeys, the why is Troy doing this? Sometimes because he doesn't know we would know all these thoughts that he had as a character, as an actor. He would share those to me with a lot of information. Well, he's going to play the part like this. This is his thoughts behind it. This is what Troy. That would feed me with information and ideas for how to support this, and that's why I think our relationship became very close in terms of performance. I feel, my job was about performance as well, because it wasn't about showing things. It wasn't about proving the cinema. It was about supporting that performance. It's, and I think, no, he cannot be behind the monitor the whole time when he's in front of the lens. The fact that I was operating the camera, so I was right there with him. Just small looks, just knowing like we got to go again, or that didn't work. I should move here if you then move there, or those kind of small intimate exchanges were working really well. We would do a couple of takes, and then Denzel would go in and have a look at the monitor and come out with corrections, or go out and, I'm happy with this. So he always kept on top of it, even though he was in it. He, in some masterly way, just managed to stay on top all the time, knowing what was going on. So it was a really amazing experience.
Right, I'm sure there's a great deal of trust that goes in there. He's trusting you to make sure that everything's going well, so no pressure, right?
Yeah, he does trust, and that makes a great director, because if you can trust, it means that you're able to, you know what's going on. It takes more, you got to have wide shoulders to take all these inputs, but he certainly does trust, and then he overviews things still, so he keeps his directional control that way, that he lets you work, and then when there is reason for comments, he'll be right there with it.
One of the extraordinary things about the movie is that it really doesn't take place in that many locations. I mean, you got the backyard, the living room, the kitchen. You got some stuff that's outside, away from the house, but really it's centered within this home. And you've got these long dialogue scenes, and you don't really repeat yourself visually that often that I could see. when I was watching the film a second time. Was it difficult not just doing the same shot over and over again, or giving each scene its own individual personality, if that makes sense?
It wasn't, because we didn't plan the shots and the visual approach in prep. During prep, we spoke story, we spoke intentions, we spoke feelings, emotions, ideas. So it's like an umbrella of what is this scene. But doing the scenes or getting there in the morning, you know, obviously the first thing Denzel would do was to bring all his co-cast and actors on set, and they would rehearse it. And that was my time to respond to that. So because it was such a spontaneous, creative approach to things, you know, and that it, like that day, because if I try to plan too much ahead, if I was going like tomorrow, you know, it'd be great if we could make a track there, because I was thinking maybe this scene, Denzel would go like, let the actors act.
Mm-hmm.
You'd go, how do you know? How do you know you can make a track there? Because, you know, I know what the scene is, but we may want, and Viola might want to do something else. So, you know, my job was to let them do and give them the freedom to perform. And I would come in with ideas, with my references, you know, photographs or whatever. So, you know, I had this mood, but I would all the time respond and react to what they did. And I think that was what Denzel, that was his direction to me, was that you got to watch, you got to listen, you got to react, you got to learn what we're doing. And then, you know, everything we did wasn't like catching up or just trying to it was being right there with them. So I came within a style, I came in with ideas, but in the morning we would then set the shot. So it didn't feel like, because we hadn't got shot lists prior, if we'd done that, I'm pretty sure it would have been like, let's do another wide over here because that's a great angle of the yard. We would have come back to that wide shot again and again. But because it was a spontaneous reaction to each scene, it knew each day just brought new ideas. So it kind of happened as we went along.
Right. Well, I mean, you can say that of every film. Every film requires a different kind of visual approach, or even a working approach. Just this last year, you also shot Girl on the Train, which is a very different kind of movie. You've also shot some films for Thomas Vinterberg, The Hunt and Far from the Maddening Crowd. Can you talk about, as a cinematographer, going from film to film and adapting your method of working, your style, to what the director and what the film requires?
I think I'm a cinematographer and a filmmaker that responds to a script that is, you know, I'm very driven by the written words. I'm very excited about the emotions that you get when you read, you know, material. And then that together with the director's approach, you know, so in this case, you know, Denzel wanting to, you know, he being, you know, the lead, wanting that freedom, wanting me to react spontaneously. That's obviously one way of approaching. With Thomas Vinterberg, we love to sit at home and kind of figure it out somehow. And that, you know, that kind of gives him something to bring back. So he's kind of the link between, you know, me and the actors. But at the same time, we do all this, but then we kind of throw it away a little bit. So there's more kind of specific technical ideas and shots. We sometimes work with a key shot. So we go like, well, this scene is about that, or it's about that, or it's about this. That's where we bring the emotion of the characters to the screen. That's the shot that we feel. And then we kind of build around that. So again, we don't get like a wide shot, close up, close up, close up, or a mid shot, or, you know, a list of shots. It becomes, you know, that shot, and then we build around that. So that's a different approach again. And it works for his scripts. It works for the way that he because he's also spontaneous. Thomas is also very much reacting to the characters. And so, you know, as a cinematographer, and I think that's what I love so much about my job, is that I meet people with different intentions and emotions and techniques, and I focus on this story, but I am ready to, you know, to angle it and to look at it from a different perspective. Yet again, I always have to bring something of me, because there is a million amazing cinematographers. So why do they choose you? Because you bring something of yourself. So even though I can adjust, I always bring my thoughts, you know. Sometimes they throw it away, and sometimes they don't.
Well, Fences is a great movie and beautifully shot. Charlotte, congratulations and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good